Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are continuing to try out some new Outlaws of Thunder Junction cards. This time we're trying them in a mono-black scam shell, which is a deck that I was one of the several people pioneering back in the day in like August last year, and I took it to European Legacy Masters, and I was a big fan of the deck. It's changed quite a bit since then, but it's a nice place to slot in some new cards and see how they fit. So, the scam package refers to these Griefs and these Troll of Khazad-dums, which do good things for us on their own and put themselves in the graveyard. And then we have the Reanimates to then just bring them back for some ridiculous value. It's kind of one of the staples of Legacy right now, and this is just one of the shells that gets to do that. Alongside this, we don't have like giant creatures we're trying to reanimate. We're not doing like the Entomb shenanigans here. We're playing a sort of fairer game. So we've got a selection of creatures. We've got Stalactite Stalker, which we can scale up with a bunch of fetch lands and with Wastelands. And obviously Griefs and Trolls can scale it up too. We've got 4 Dauthi Voidwalker, which is just an excellent card right now. Really hammers a lot of these graveyard decks. Big fan of having this in the deck. Then we have 4 Orcish Bowmasters. Again, a very powerful card. And what's good about this card is it's not very good against us. So our opponent's Bowmasters won't do that much, but our Bowmasters will do loads against all the blue decks, which is definitely one of the less egregious parts of the Orcish Bowmasters impact on Legacy, because it is good against blue decks and not so good against non-blue decks. But yeah, don't need to talk about this card anymore. Then we have Gix. So I've played this once before and it was reasonable, so I'm going to give it another run. So 3 mana, 3/3, and then whenever you deal combat damage to one of your opponents, you get to draw a card, basically. So you can draw a card for each creature that deals damage at the cost of 1 life. And we get to choose on resolution if we draw the card. So if they flash in a Bowmasters, we can just say no, and we're not going to get stung by drawing the card and getting pinged or whatever. And then we have our first appearance of a new card. Vadmir New Blood. So this is 1 and a black for a 2/2 vampire. Whenever you commit a crime, put a +1/+1 counter on New Blood. This ability triggers only once a turn. So this is very similar to Stalactite Stalker. It's a scaling up threat. So in terms of things that we can commit crimes with, we have Wastelands, we have discard spells, we have removal spells, we have Orcish Bowmasters. That's pretty reasonable to get that done. And this has some extra text of, as long as it's got 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Menace and Lifelink. So again, another Menace threat to sort of go with the whole Menace package of like, well, this isn't really Menace, but you know what I mean, evasion package. So we've got Shadow, we've got Menace, we've got Super Menace here, we've got Menace here. So we've got evasive threats that do other things on the board as well. This is just a threat, but it seems quite interesting. I want to give it a go. I've seen a few other mono-black scam players trying it out, so I want to have a go myself. So that's our sort of threat base. Then we've got some removal here. So Fatal Push, Murderous Cut, Snuff Outs. But then we've got 2 Shoot the Sheriff. So this is a new removal spell in the sort of classic frame of black, where it's 1 and a black, instant, destroy, target non-something. And this one is non-outlaw, which is assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks are the ones we can't kill with this. So it should hit a decent amount of things, but again, it does feel a little bit risky sometimes having things like Snuff Out and Shoot the Sheriff when they're going to be situational. Sometimes they just might not do it for you, and we don't have ways of brainstorming them away or shuffling them away. So there's definitely some downsides to this. I don't know why black can't just have 1 and a black destroy target creature these days. Like Swords to Plowshares exists. Why can't black have some premium removal too? Anyway, so that's what we're doing there. So this is another way of committing a crime, and it's very in theme because it's from the set. And we've got our discard package, pretty standard. Inside our mana base, we have a Raucous Theater and an Underground Mortuary. So not only are our fetch lands just there to pump up our Stalker, they can actually get us some Surveil lands, which is big news, and the Surveil land can also trigger the Stalker if we're just playing it from hand. So that's the main deck. And we've got a sideboard here with some pretty normal looking stuff. So we've got some Surgicals and Fairies for the graveyard. We've got some Null Rods for artifact decks. We've got some Sheoldred Edicts to take out some creatures. And then we've got a Pithing Needle. I've seen a lot of the mono-black scam list running 1 Pithing Needle. I'm not entirely sure why there's the 1 Pithing Needle in the sideboard, but we're going to try it and see if it comes up and we understand it in that way. And then we have another new card, which is another card that I think was a very powerful addition from the new set. So this is 3 black for a 5/4 Menace. When it enters the battlefield, other creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. So this will kill our own creatures if it's the only thing we play. This is why it's in the sideboard. You can also pay 1 and a black to discard it, and target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So this is just like Grief and Troll of Khazad-dum in the way that it can do something good on the front side and put itself into your graveyard and then turn on your Reanimates. So this is a removal spell that then becomes a sweeper with Reanimate. So in the matchups where we want that, this is going to be absolutely backbreaking, and I think this card is very potent. Alright, that's the deck tech done. Remember to like and subscribe, and let's get scamming. We are on the play for game 1. Not a bad place to be. Our hand is a touch slow, but we can just turn 1 Mortuary and then turn 2, Voidwalker or Vadmir. So this is acceptable. I like to evaluate these lands as kind of half a ponder. It's the sort of metric I've been going for on them. Right, so we'll lead out on the Mortuary. See what future holds for us. So this Thoughtseize could be quite an important tool. I think it's worth keeping this on top of our library. It also triggers our Vadmir if that's the thing we're interested in doing. Ancient Tomb. Just going to be a Chalice of the Void. Alright, so now we have a dead card on top of our library. Unfortunate. We don't know what flavour of Chalice deck this is. So I think we're incentivized to fetch out... Are we incentivized to fetch out a basic Swamp here and play the Dauthi? Feels like it might be the play. The other option here is you play the Vadmir, and then next turn we can Dauthi and Wasteland, and we just have 2 decently growing threats. But I think we're just going to go for getting the basic Swamp out now, because we don't want to get caught under a moon if we can avoid it. This Chalice is going to be pretty backbreaking. It's cut 3 cards off from my hand already. Like, we can play Vadmir and Wasteland next turn, that's still fine. I think this is the better way of doing it. Another Ancient Tomb. Are we on a colourless deck? Chalice for 2. Okay. A bit rude, but it is what it is. These Ancient Tombs, though, are definitely not free for our opponent. If the best thing they could do was Chalice on 2, I'm just going to strip out one of these lands now. Like, it makes it further from us being able to cast a thing, but if our opponent gets to cast some spells, we're probably going to lose this game, because we don't have many spells left in our deck. Alright, we could be looking at Initiative that has main deck Chalice. That would make sense here. A Mountain. A Rabblemaster. Okay. Do we beat this? I'm not sure. I'm not going to do the maths because it doesn't really matter. We'll work it out in a minute. A lovely Orcish Bowmasters we didn't get to do anything with. Alright. We have an unblockable. If they tap that Ancient Tomb one more time, they die. So they have to win with this Rabblemaster. They've got 2 combat steps. So first one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next one is +2 damage. So, okay, they found another creature. That's awkward for us for sure. I think we're going to be a little bit shy on this one. So this is 8 damage, and then next turn it's way more than that. So Snuff Out isn't good enough here either. Unless we Snuff Out and play our own Rabblemaster, and we have a Rabblemaster to block with, but I guess pretty awkward. Troll of Khazad-dum, this isn't actually going to achieve anything for us. So I guess we just attack with this Dauthi Voidwalker, and then our opponent cracks back. They don't even have a choice here. So this is 2, this is 3, 6, 9, 12, plus, yeah, loads. Okay, we didn't get to play any spells that game, which isn't really where I want to be. Harvester of Misery is a reasonable card. Removal spells are reasonable. I think that's fine. I think the hand disruption is still good. I think we maybe want to lean off of some of the graveyard stuff a little bit. Although just dumping a big troll in our opponent's lap is a very powerful way to begin the game. Maybe we're just boarding out these... I guess the Orcish Bowmasters is pretty weak here. So that gets us some Harvesters of Misery and 1 Sheoldred's Edict. And then if we want the other Edicts, we have to decide what goes. I think the Edict is better than the Cut here. We still want our Stalkers. Like, Duress is pretty good to begin with. So our opponent looked like a prison deck with the Chalices, but they had the Arab Mesa, which does beg a few questions. Maybe they're a bit lighter on creatures, so we actually want the a bit lighter on prison pieces in favour of creatures. So maybe we just want to have a whole bunch of removal like that. I don't mind Thoughtseize in my opener, but I don't really want to be drawing them after the fact. Sure, we can keep this. I think we probably just throw away the Gix to the grief. We want to get a turn 1 look at our opponent's hand because their whole deck is built around accelerating something gross out that can ruin our day. And then we can decide when the time is right whether we're getting a Surveil land for a little bit extra value or if we're getting a swamp to play around Blood Moon so we have black available. Alright, opponent's gone to 5, so our grief is looking even more potent. Alright, so let's grief pitching this Gix. Let's see what our opponent's up to. Oh wow, they're scooping it up. Okay, I'm even less on the Duresses post board as well. I think this is fine. Like, it's the things we have, so Harvester of Misery can be pretty good here. Can sweep up a goblin and all its tokens. And it can also just, you know, discard to kill a goblin. We've got removal spells. We've got a threat that can scale up. I think we keep this. We'll see what our opponent does turn 1. And that will inform what we're pitching to our grief. Alright, our opponent's got 3 mana on turn 1. Okay, there's a Source to Plowshares underneath that. So they are more on the sort of red-white guys. What, is that just a Rabblemaster? A Seasoned Dungeoneer. Okay, so we're definitely not getting rid of our removal spell. That's for sure. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. So we can play the Stalker. Oh wow, that's even better. Let's grief. Pitching. The Stalactite Stalker doesn't have to be in play. It just needs at the end step. So we can play that afterwards. I'm just working out if we want the Troll. I think we just pitch in the Troll here. That does help us scale up, but that's not really what this game is going to be about. Let's see what our opponent's got as their last card. Nothing. Okay, that's alright for us. So we're going to see what our opponent does, and then we're going to snuff out their guy. So if they put counters on it, we can snuff it out. And then we can steal the initiative next turn and just keep removing all their threats and just win with their mechanic. Right, they've gone down the Lost Well. So we're going to make them scry, and then before they draw this card, in case it's the flickery card, we're just going to get rid of this now. Now they've scryed 2. They put 2 on the top, though. Our creature does have Menace, which is going to be a pretty good boon for us. Right, Chaos Adventurer. This is going to take them into the stash. But they're going to lose this guy, and we're going to attack them for 2. We're going to take the initiative, and then be in a pretty commanding position, I would imagine. The Wasteland we can use next turn to scale up. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. So this will get us a basic Swamp from our deck. Let's get a snow-covered one, why not? And now our opponent has a Seat of Traitors in hand. So they've got things like Dauthi Voidwalker in their deck, which are absolutely devastating for us. But outside of that, okay, they did put 2 on top with their scry. So I have to imagine there's something going on over there. Are we forging or are we Lost Welling? I think we're Lost Welling. Now, what would our opponent keep on top? Probably a removal spell. A Fatal Push is good. Reanimate is good. So we'll put this... I think we'll put the push on the bottom and just have the Reanimate here. Because then we can reanimate their creature. Right, let's attack. Let's see if our opponent has a response here. They do not. Alright, so I'm going to reanimate. Don't want the Caves of Chaos Adventurer. This is more cards. We already have an unblockable guy. This guy's just bigger. Or sorry, this girl is just bigger. That's a tricky choice between these two. They both die to Fury. If this gets ploughed, we gain 1 more life. I'm going to go for the Caves of Chaos Adventurer, I think. Big strong lady coming in on our side. This will take us into the stash. And we're also holding up Sheoldred's Edict. The flicker thing... The flicker thing doesn't put it back under their control, if I remember rightly. It puts it back under its owner's control. Now, if that's not the case, then when this gets flickered and our opponent gets it back, then that's going to be a bit of a problem for us. A Solitude. Right, so we're going to lose the Caves of Chaos Adventurer. We'll do this now before our opponent has the flickery thing. And then we get to go into the Catacombs. Gets us a Spooky Skeleton. Thoughtseize, I don't think that's where we're directing any of our attention. I think I would rather hold up the activate ability on the Stalactite Stalker. If we take out the City of Traitors, how good is that? It grows our Stalactite Stalker, so I think it's worth doing because of that. It gives us a -3 on it, if that becomes a thing we need to do. We've got Throne of the Dead 3 incoming. Cavern of Souls, sure. Like, they had their colours, so this isn't going to suddenly unlock something from their hand. Alright, Throne of the Dead 3. What have you got for us? Dauthi Voidwalker, a Grief. Grief's got Evasion. Let's just have one of those. Nothing in our opponent's hand. We have a new card, but I don't think there's any point playing it. I think that would be a mistake when we can just hold up the activate ability on the Stalactite Stalker here. We don't even care about Dauthi Voidwalker at this point. Alright, we won the match in the classic way that you beat Initiative, where you play a 1-drop creature, you kill their creatures after introducing Initiative, and you win with their own mechanic. Alright, 1-0, let's go to round 2. We have a lot of mana in this hand. But we can Thoughtseize into 2-drop. And then, all right. So, yeah, so we've got, okay. We're going to be the ones getting scammed on here. I was going to say, we've got some reasonable plays ahead of us. And we've got, one of our lands is a Surveil land, and we can obviously fetch on the Surveil land. So we've got 2 half ponders, so we call it a whole ponder between them. But that does cost us coming to play tap land. We're getting reanimated on as well. We are. Okay. Things are troublesome from this point. An Orcish Bowmasters, though. That's a pretty solid one. So I think that means we're just getting a swamp here. And we're just going to fire off our Thoughtseize because it's a thing we have that we can do. A Brainstorm. Alright, let's get rid of that Force of Will. They're probably going to Brainstorm now, which means that our Bowmaster's not going to get all the ridiculous value it could do. But I just play the fetch land and pass. But I think they should be brainstorming before we get to go to our turn. Let's play this out. I guess we'll just wait for our opponent to play this Brainstorm now. Maybe they just wanted one more card in hand before they fired it off. I think it's okay to take this for another turn. We're cycling a Troll of Khazad-dum. Okay. That could be awkward for us. Let's just get reanimated. It is indeed. It's quite a large boy. I kind of regret not being able to block this now. Yeah, it's quite a good set of draws since we saw their hand, really, but not much we get to do about that right now. We are actually favoured in this matchup, generally speaking, because we have the advantage when it comes to like Orcish Bowmasters and also have Dauthi Voidwalker. But our opponent was on the play, and that's usually pretty good. Right, let's have a look at this theatre. A Fatal Push. That doesn't kill the troll, and we have to double block the grief anyway, so that has to go. So I think we're double blocking the grief this turn. Next turn, we hope to draw something that kills this troll, but we've got these horrible Snuff Outs in our deck that are not really going to get the work done for us. Right, so we got that block off. We lose half our life total. Or has our opponent got a Bowmasters themselves? No, okay. So we need something good. That's not the one. Alright, to the sideboard. So what do I want out of this sideboard? I think the Faerie Macabres are pretty useful here. Social Extraction, same sort of deal. And then just removal spells also look pretty fine here. These Snuff Outs can get right in the bin. They seem terrible. Shoot the Sheriff will kill Bowmasters, it will kill Troll, it will kill Grief. It won't kill... Yeah, it won't kill Dauthi Voidwalker. Do we want these Duresses and Thoughtseize? I don't think so. We could be losing a bunch of resources. We want to have our stuff be good off the top. So we still need to find 3 cards to take. Do we need all of this alongside our Dauthi Voidwalker? I don't think we do. We'll maybe take out the Surgicals. And that leaves us with 1 slot to find. Harvester is kind of an awkward one because it can wipe our board. So I think we'll take one of those out. And try it like this. Because our opponent can reanimate our own guy. Okay, this seems acceptable to me. Like, I think we just have to do the grief here. As much as I like the Dauthi Voidwalker. Brainstorm, Entomb, Fatal Push. I don't really care about that many of these things. I guess the Entomb isn't so bad. If they want to Entomb a big monster, we might be able to take it off of them. Do we take the Brainstorm from this pile? Like, we can take 2 cards if we want. So we could take like the Entomb and the Push. And that leaves them doing the Bowmasters double block. But then where are we left at that point? Then we take the Brainstorm here. And then we get some Surveil value. Troll of Khazad-dum is pretty good. That can go into our graveyard. This does mean that if our opponent draws a Reanimate, it's pretty good for them. There is an Underground Sea. And a Ponder was their draw for turn. Okay. So we can reanimate the grief now and take that Entomb if we want. They chose not to shuffle. A Dauthi Voidwalker, that's a pretty strong one. I think I'd be remiss not to jam this one right into play. That shuts off the Entomb in our opponent's hand as well. And then we can reanimate next turn, now that we've got their thing that goes over the top dealt with. Alright, they had the Fatal Push that we knew about, but that's fine. Wasteland, you know Wasteland us? They are. Alright, so we have pretty good information. And now we can just reanimate if we want to, or we can Bowmasters. Alright, I would like to reanimate. Is it the grief here? The grief isn't great into the Bowmaster, the problem. We could reanimate the Dauthi Voidwalkers. That shuts off a lot of stuff here. I think that's the line. Do we want to save this? Or do you just want to restrict our opponent's development? I think we just restrict the development here. Right, there's the Flooded Strand. We can get the Surveil land here if we don't want to get the Bowmasters. We don't want to be the first person to play Bowmasters. Although we're not drawing extra cards, it doesn't really matter as much. But just playing it out for 1 damage to face is pretty unexciting. And there's a Delta from our opponent. I'm going to crack this. If our opponent has a Brainstorm, something they do it in response then anyway. Alright, let's get some Surveil action going. And Orcish Bowmasters. I do like that. Okay, so I'm not cycling this Troll this turn. Well, I can cycle it in right now if I want to, which is fine. There's already one in the graveyard anyway. So our opponent already had one to reanimate if they wanted that. Alright, so we can Dauthi Voidwalker. We're going to see the Bowmasters at end step here. Opponent's got a lot of cards in hand. Oh, they're going for a Petty Theft. That's pretty good. We're going to see an Entomb Reanimate. Let's pounce on this with the Bowmasters. And then a Brainstorm over the top. Sure. So we don't really know what's in our opponent's hand anymore. There's probably a Bowmasters and an Entomb floating around. But we'll see. Yeah, this is a classic play pattern these days where into the open black mana you fire off your Ponder and then you do your Brainstorm response. But if they had that, it means that it's going to be hard for them to do Entomb Reanimate this turn. Which is the thing I'm most worried about. And then we can just stick our Dauthi Voidwalker next turn and shut that down. And if our opponent tries to play around that by entombing now, it means they might end up giving us a thing that we can reanimate. No third land. Let's attack. Little friends. Doing a little bit of damage. Let's play a Dauthi. And let's get the Stalactite Stalker in. That's the one that we don't mind playing in today's. That also gives us lethal damage on board. We have exactly 7. If they crack this Polluted Delta, then it means they have to answer 2 of our creatures rather than just 1. We also have the Bowmaster in hand for a final ping, which could throw off our opponent's maths. Alright, a Bowmaster. We'll take out the Stalker. Sure, that's an evasive creature. Makes sense. Faerie Macabre, that's not unhelpful. I do think we are in the market for popping off this Bowmasters first. If our opponent reacts to anything, we get it under the Voidwalker. Yeah, our opponent's had enough. And we go to the sideboarding. So Dauthi Voidwalker is like a big trump card in these sorts of matchups. I like how we sideboarded here. I don't think I want to change anything. Alright, this is not the one, so we're going to have to mulligan this one. This one has a lot of spells. We're on the draw, so that's 2 draw steps to find either a troll or a land. I think this is okay. I'm not super happy about it, but I believe in the deck. There you go. Told you. Easy peasy. I'm a little bit worried about just Entomb Reanimate happening now. Right, cycling a troll. I can deal with a troll. It's Atraxa or Archon that I'm most worried about. A Dauthi Voidwalker. So our opponent is on that as well. We crack this now and just get ourselves a Raucous Theater. Do we want another land? I think so. Right, we're going to want it at some point. May as well have it now. Alright, let's reanimate their troll. And then we can go and get another Surveil land end step if we want to. Now, running Wastelands could unstick us a little bit. That's a price I'm willing to pay. Right, an Entomb from our opponent. Are they Entomb and reanimating in this turn cycle? If so, that's pretty bad news for us. Oh, they're getting our reanimates. Yeah, that is pretty good. We can kill their Atraxa, but they're going to have a lot of cards. So 2 Brainstorms, so not going to get those. Let's see what they opt for in the end. Alright, so they kept Scalding Tarn, Reanimate, Brazen Borrower, Animate Dead, and Fatal Push. Oh, I clicked some of the wrong ones there. Yep, that Wasteland, pretty good. Let's go and get our other Surveil land. We need a touch of help here. Okay, that's something. Or attack. I don't believe our opponent's boarded in Force of Negation. Right, so they're going to lose their Dauthi Voidwalker most likely rather than the Atraxa. But we have a follow-up next turn with our Sheoldred's Edict. We don't get to Sheoldred's Edict and then... yeah, so we don't get to Sheoldred's Edict and Reanimate because we're not going to have the life for that. So we know they've got a land and a Brazen Borrower. Another Entomb. This for the Archon. We're just going to get Animate Deaded on. Yeah, they just went over the top of us. Basically, this whole game came down to them having that Entomb. That was a bit awkward. Maybe could have played around that by not reanimating. But they have 8 reanimation spells in their deck, so it's quite likely they're going to get one at some point. It's just the Entomb that we're trying to dodge, and we don't really have an out to that. Unless we draw our Graveyard hit, which we just didn't draw. So maybe we're supposed to board in the Surgicals, because we beat the fair plan very easily. So maybe we do want the Surgicals just so we don't lose the unfair plan. Alright, so we're 1-1, let's go to round 3. We have 2 lands, but we're slightly vulnerable to a Wasteland. What does our hand actually do here? It's already kind of a mulligan. We've got 2 of a legend. Alright, I'm going to mulligan this. This hand is much better. We get to keep this. We're probably just binning one of the Wastelands. And then we can just Thoughtseize into Dauthi, Wasteland, which is pretty solid. Alright, maybe the Wasteland's not going to be so good here. Thoughtseize. We're probably losing either the Thoughtseize or the or one of our Dauthis. Well, those are the options our opponent can take. But I think they're more likely to go for the Thoughtseize. Yeah, they're going for the Thoughtseize. That slows us down a touch. Let's play this Bloodstained Mire. So we can get a Surveil land here. This extra selection is really nice. Big fan of that. Alright, so we've got this Verdant Catacomb being cracked on the side. Another swamp. Our opponent has a Dauthi Voidwalker. This appears to be a mirror match. I'll get the Raucous Theater. The Wasteland. Put into the graveyard. That does not help us here. If we had a way of scaling up our Vadmir, I would want that, because if we can scale it up to the lifelink, that will win races for us. Fatal Push. That is a way to scale up our Vadmir, so let's just jam our little friend first. And then next turn we can Dauthi plus Fatal Push, and then their Dauthi goes into the void rather than into their graveyard. Okay. We're playing this game. Alright, our opponent has basically got the exact same hand as us, but they were on the play, so we're going to lose. Yikes, that's pretty bad too. Alright. Lost our removal spell. We're now getting clocked for 6 a turn after this. Not looking good. Orcish Bowmasters. That allows us to triple block here. Well, ping, block, block. Is that good? Is the next question. It's probably better than Dauthi Voidwalker. Our opponent is hellbent, so if we can survive and then start chipping away things, we'll be okay. Okay, so we now know that our Bowmaster is going to work, because our opponent doesn't have anything. Alright, so we ping on this. We go to blocks. Bowmaster not particularly good in this matchup anyway, so being able to use it as a removal spell is fine. And now we've just got to draw some actual removal for this Dauthi Voidwalker, and we'll be okay. We didn't get that though. So let's go smash this into play. Verdant Catacombs. We can crack this, but it does change the clock. It's a case of, do we think that the Surveil is going to be more important than having one extra turn? Vadmir. I think we're going to have to Surveil here. Yeah, they're just getting our Fatal Push back. So we're kind of left with the same conundrum again about whether or not we crack. I think we do. We'll go and get ourselves an Underground Mortuary. Orcish Bowmasters. That's the same play we had before, and it worked then. So our opponent needs to not draw something that allows them to commit a crime. We can chump block this Vadmir, but that's not ideal. Duress. Alright, you can Duress me. The fact that it's just put a +1/+1 counter on their guy is really nice there. Nice attack for 4, we don't get to block. We could chump block, but I don't think this is the turn we're doing that. We can prevent more damage later on if we chump block, and this way we can put up some kind of race perhaps. None of these cards help us really either from the Dauthi, but it's worth keeping an eye on them. That's not very helpful. We bash for 5 here, then we take 4, and then we have to think about blocking. I guess we play our Polluted Delta. It's not the most helpful though. Feels like we are on the full mirror match, although we've got some side different stuff in the sideboard with our harvesters, which should come in pretty useful in this matchup. Yeah, this is a pretty good play. They're targeting a card in our graveyard, so they get to commit a crime as well. So we take 5 this turn, and then the Dauthi Voidwalker is just lethal. Yikes. But if we can find 1 point of damage, we can win the game. Another Bowmasters? Not another Bowmasters. Is there anything we can do here? No, we put them to 1, and then they crack back and kill us. If we hold back to blocks, I guess we can block with our... We can trade Dauthi Voidwalkers and then chump block their guy. Do we want to get in a tiny bit of damage here? There is a risk if we get in a tiny bit of damage. I think that's acceptable. Now, if our opponent's drawing a removal spell, we're losing this game anyway. Because they just kill the Voidwalker. Stalactite Stalker. Actually, fail push. Yeah, like I said, if they have a removal spell, we die anyway. And then targeting the Dauthi Voidwalker, so we can't even fire this back. Yeah, we're just donezoed. Yeah, that was basically just play versus draw. And we were on the draw. So, no good, I'm afraid. Alright, I like these things. I don't know how I feel about Surgical Extraction here. Obviously, the Snuff Outs, which is a card that I just don't like in the main deck at all these days. This isn't really a Duress matchup. I don't think this is a Thoughtseize matchup either. I think we just want removal spells and dudes. Shoot the Sheriff. What does this hit? It doesn't hit Dauthi. It doesn't hit Stalactite Stalker. It only hits Troll and Grief. Maybe we don't want to shoot the Sheriffs. We're going to trim one of those and just have better removal. I think we probably still have to keep one in. It's better than... I guess we could take one out for a Surgical. I think that's okay. Like, at least the Faerie is a thing we can cast and do whatever with. But I feel this is one of those games where it's just play draw dependent. Like, it's the mirror match and it's quite a tempo-y deck because you have all your griefs and stuff. What does this hand do? We would grief and then what? We're pretty cold to a bunch of stuff. We need to find a land. We do get to surveil. So we get 2 looks at another land. If we miss, we do still have a spell to play. Okay. I'm going to reluctantly keep this one. I'm going to fire off this. I think we have to pitch this Sheoldred's Edict. Right, so they have a Reanimate. Don't really want to get hit by that. But the rest of their hand is not great. We also can't get the Surveil land now because they've shown us the Wasteland. So, awkward. There is a basic swamp into a Thoughtseize. Oh, they drew a Reanimate, did they? Crack this. We'll pay it for 1 life because our opponent's not a blue deck. Just get rid of this one, leave the other ones in our deck because they're good cards. Okay. We counterspelled them. Oh, okay. This is pretty good turn of events for us. There's no creatures in graveyard at all. Inquisition, that can hit either of our removal spells. So I took the Edict. That can kill trolls and such. Okay, they're going to take them both. Let's bash. I'm going to leave this swamp in hand so our opponent thinks about some stuff. There's a Wasteland. Another Thoughtseize. See, we got 3/2 damage out of that by keeping that land in hand. We play this. Our opponent is going to play the Bowmaster, so we're not going to get a draw here. Yeah. Well, we can still take the draw if we want to, but they should put the ping on the... Right, they didn't put the ping on this. I was going to say they could put the ping on the Dauthi Voidwalker. I think it's worth taking a ping here to get 1 card. Alright, that's a pretty good card. Because a 2/2 will still get outclassed by a 3/3. Vadmir. Faerie Macabre, certainly not unhelpful. So we're definitely attacking with the Voidwalker. If we attack with the Gix, what happens here? They could double block and we could shrink 1 and that's very good for us. If they don't block, we can just kill this Orcish Bowmaster and draw 2 cards. Another Harvester of Misery. Alright, our opponent's scooping it up. Alright, the Harvester of Misery did help out. So that's nice to know. I think we will just go back in again. This time our opponent's on the draw, so I suspect they are favoured. But there's only so much you can do at the end of the day. Alright, we've got removal. We've got their graveyard lines sorted. We've got a few draws to keep to find land. Like, we only need 1 more land and then we're good. So we've got 2 draws. We can get a Surveil land if we're willing to take the risk of a Wasteland. A Stalactite Stalker. Sure. Are they going to grief us or anything? No. A basic swamp. Love to see you. I don't really want to grief right now. Feels kind of dangerous. I think we're just going to see what our opponent does this turn. And then react. Sure, if you want to ping me for 1 here, that's fine. In the second main phase, are you going to play a creature or not? An Orcish Bowmaster. Is that a creature I even care about? That's an interesting question. I don't think it is. I think... Oh, they pinged their own guy. Okay, that's excellent. We will fail push this now. We're just going to get another basic. Jam our Voidwalker. We've got Surgical Extraction if there's any monsters over there. We've also got Faerie Macabre, so even if they like grief us, they can't really stop that. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Goodbye, Dauthi Voidwalker. Yeah, so we're going to be on the hard cast and grief line most likely. I would like to have our Dauthi Voidwalker back, please. Alright, so we've got a removal spell. If we can find another land, we can just hard cast a grief. Because their creature is a token, if they play a creature, we're very likely to be able to kill it. Fatal Push. Sure, we're just going to keep playing this game. If you kill my guy, we move on with our lives. We could have boarded out a Wasteland in this matchup. That might have been a good idea. Alright, I will go for the Surveil land here. A Reanimate. Sure. I'll have this Dauthi Voidwalker back, please. At some point, we might get a horrible situation where we have to kill the Orc army, but I don't believe that's a situation we're going to be in for a very long time. Black, black. No? We're going to see the attack first. We are. Now what are they going to play? They didn't play anything. Very interesting. A swamp. Alright, so now we get to hardcast our grief. We just pre-combat in case we take something really sweet that we want with our Dauthi Voidwalker. Shoot the Sheriff. Oh, they were going to try and kill our Dauthi Voidwalker, but they can't. I see. What have you got here? 2 Orcish Bowmasters. That's interesting. I'm going to attack for 3. And then our opponent's draw step, I think we're going to extract this Bowmaster. We know they have one in hand. Actually, that's a terrible play because they have... It's flash, right? Yeah. Okay, no, we won't do that. There's the Bowmasters that we knew about. We could have done that while their mana was tapped. That might have been a bit of a spew there. What is in their exile zone? Shoot the Sheriff, it doesn't work. And an Orcish Bowmasters that does do some work. Wasteland. You are pretty bad, but you are a mana source, so I will take that. I will play out this Faerie Macabre. That is a creature that can block. We do still have the Sheoldred's Edict as well. Stalactite Stalker. Sure. Do they go attack with? I think they just attack with the Orc army here. I think we're going to make our opponent sacrifice a token. This doesn't trigger Stalactite Stalker because it's not a card, it's a token. So we could go and get this Orcish Bowmasters and just ping this guy off while we can. I think that's worth doing. We'll cast this. Ping off this Stalactite Stalker. We could have done this in a way that actually left us with another creature underneath the Voidwalker. That was a little bit loose. Sheoldred's Edict. Each person sacrifices a creature token. They attack, I'll happily block her. Yeah, our opponent is pretty aware of that one. So we can attack with the Voidwalker. Do you want to attack with the Bowmasters here? Or do you want to attack with the Faerie Macabre? The Faerie Macabre's harder for them to remove. Then we attack with this. We'll play this out. This gives us one more Surveil. Gix. Okay. That is a thing that we can kill using our Dauthi Voidwalker. Right, let's crack this and get a Surveil land. What have you got for us there? Oh, Misery Man. You're pretty interesting here. I'll take that. So I don't think we need to do this. We can block and then minus. So we can block here, minus here, kill that. And absolutely have it off. So we just crash for 3 here. Opponent doesn't necessarily want to draw extra cards with their guy either. This isn't a great spot to cast the Harvester of Misery though. This is definitely a downside, but I'll take a removal spell. A Grief. That is interesting. That is interesting. I think we are we're doing this now because that's the thing they're going to take. So are we shrinking this Gix for a turn? I think so. Because then we just win on the backswing. So shrink this guy. And then what are we going to cast this on? Does it matter? Is the real question. Our opponent's got no cards in hand. Guess we'll take a Fatal Push. They're not going to be able to draw an extra card here either. Let's just have a look at what's in their deck. Gix, Dauthi. Yeah, they don't have any of the Surveil lands. But otherwise, I think it's basically the same deck. But yeah, so now they can attack with 2 1/1s, but we have 5 evasive damage they can't block. So we have this one in the bag. And it's doing some maths here. And we got the match. So our sideboard tech of the Haunting guy actually was pretty good. Sorry, the Harvester of Misery. That guy actually ended up being pretty useful here. And was a little bit of a mirror breaker where our opponent had these shoot the sheriffs that weren't actually great to point at us. So, pretty cool. We are 2-1. Let's go to round 4. Alright. We have some play here, but this land is a little bit awkward for us. I think we will keep it. We've got 2 draws to find another black source, and if we don't, it's still at the end of the world unless we've been wastelanded. But sometimes Wasteland is just going to get you. It's not free to play these Surveil lands. Underground Mortuary. What do you have for me? A Grief. I'll put that on top of my library. I think it's going to match up where Grief is useful. I'd like to fire off 1 Grief now, because our opponent is likely to be playing things like Up the Beanstalk. Going to be nice to get one of those out right now. Up the Beanstalk. Look at that. That thing that I said. Excellent. Okay, I'd like to get Dauthi Voidwalker at some point soon, but we know we've got a Grief on top. But we can just strip our opponent's hand and then maybe start wastelanding them and all that sort of jazz. Okay, so we know what they drew for turn. It was the Lush Portico. So we should be in a pretty nice spot here. We can pitch this Grief, take a look at their hand. Takes Lauren Revealed. Then we can reanimate this Grief. Take the Murktide. We can take out one of their green sources. That seems like it's going to set them back another turn. Alright, pretty good turn. We've got to reanimate. By using that Wasteland, it has set us off of Bowmasters for a turn. But the upside is it set our opponent off of Uro for a turn. And then maybe we could find some land and Dauthi Voidwalker down the line. Right, there's a Tundra. Now we start cracking. A Raucous Theater. We think we play this one out. See what we have here. A Duress. We don't need that now. Time has come and gone for that. So we could go and get another Grief and take another chunk out of our opponent's hand, but I don't know if that's actually worth doing when we have this Reanimate Solitude line to take their Uro out in a couple of turns. I think it's going to be more important. Because Uro is one of those cards that just goes over the top of Scam if they can get it into play. Interesting. They didn't want to put their Uro in the graveyard. That is an interesting one. I will attack. We'll hold up this Bowmasters. Swords, 2 Plowshares. That's fine by me. Like I said, this Reanimate is for their Solitude. So we should see the Uro this turn. They could have just, if they had the land now, they could have played the Uro and dropped the land. Obviously, they might not have had that. Alright, so then with this trigger on the stack, we will make a Bowmaster. Some free damages in here. Obviously, they just gained life, so it's not a perfect exchange, but it's pretty good. It grows our guy. And we have another one, so we can probably outscale their Uro just with an Orc army soon. Snuff Out, that's also pretty reasonable. But I do like the Solitude line. This is our backup if that doesn't work. We missed a point of damage that we could have had there. But maybe they're not going to play the Uro if we have 2 Bowmasters. And we kind of want them to play the Uro. Yep, here it comes. Right, smash down another one of these. Alright, they got rid of the Solitude. So now we kill this before they have a chance to draw a card that could be a counterspell. Alright. And then we're going to get 2 Bowmaster triggers. So we're going to have, what, 7 damage? So that's going to be half our opponent's life total per hit. Not too shabby. Bloodstained Mire. We don't have anything exciting to fetch this anymore. Ash for 7. We have lethal, so I don't think we need to commit this Reanimate to anything. We will still play out our land, though. A Leyline Binding. Sure, that's going to take a lot of damage off the board. I think they have to take the Orc army. Like, they're not dead if they take one of the Bowmasters, but they're not really feeling very healthy at that point. Blue and blue. They're thinking about something over there. Let's go to attacks. So are we reanimating Grief now? I think so. We need to make sure we have lethal damage in play. So Supreme Verdict and Terminus are things we're worried about from the top of our opponent's deck. So I don't think we play the Stalker out. We can play it next turn and then crack the Bloodstained Mire. But we'll see what is in our opponent's hand. If they've got a bunch of spot removal and they fire some off here, then we probably have to play the Stalker so we can at least represent lethal. Veil of Summer. Right, the first one will ping this. Second one will ping us. Right, we definitely have to play the Stalker now. We've got some damages. What was that blue card our opponent was going to play earlier? Is it the new Jace, maybe? I'm not personally a fan of that card, but I can see why people might want to try it out. If they can kill our Grief, then they buy another turn. Maybe we're supposed to just play into sweepers and just say, you're going to have lots of spot removal. Big Daddy Mercs. Not that big, though. That also doesn't gain them life. So they have to have something here. Troll of Khazad-dum. That's not really the one, is it? So we can attack for just a guaranteed 3. If we attack with everything and they block here, they will die. If they have a removal spell, then we lose a Bowmaster to do this. I think that's acceptable. You need 2 blockers for this grief. Menace is a thing. Alright, they didn't have it. Whew. Bit of a tense one, but we got there. So what do I like in this matchup? I like to have more threats. I don't think this Fatal Push is doing that much work for us either. Shoot the Sheriff, kills Uro and Murktide, so that's good. Murderous Cut. I'm not sure we're just getting the cards for the Murderous Cut. Seems not the ideal removal spell. Let's have a Sheoldred's Edict instead. How many other... Snuff Outs are pretty reasonable. I like the discard, I like the graveyard stuff, I like the card advantage. So we could play another threat. Well, we could play something like Faerie Macabre, just out of respect for Uro, which is definitely a bit of a pain. I think this removal is probably enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we've got Dautheize and a Faerie Macabre to deal with that. The other option is to have the Harvester, which is a big menace threat. It demands an answer if the game goes long. But it has some kind of awkward text if we're trying to go wide. It's not really where it's for, so I think we're going to leave it in the sideboard and go in like this. It's really, for, you know, your Goblins, your Death and Taxes, your Cradle Control, those sorts of matchups, where you can just have a removal spell that then turns into a sweeper. Okay, this seems alright. We've got some pretty good cards here. Dauthi Voidwalker can make sure that we don't get hit by an Uro. We got a Wasteland and an Orcish Bowmasters. And then we have a Reanimate to buy back whatever gets killed. Or countered, more likely, because we're unlikely to be able to reanimate a thing that they kill because they're going to be using Swords to Plowshares, Leyline Binding, that sort of jazz. Possibly Prismatic Ending. Hedge Maze from our opponent. Put the card on top of their library. Alright, in the end step, I think we're going to fire off a Surveil Land. Oh, I've clicked through that by accident. Alright, I guess we're not doing that. So our opponent has mana here. So I think we're just going to pass. It's quite an obvious Bowmasters. We're going to see from our opponent. A Xander's Lounge. A Tropical Island. No further play from our opponent. No white sources yet, so that's their removal colour not accessible to them. That is certainly something we are hoping to take advantage of here. Stick down a Bowmasters. Do you want to do anything about this? I don't believe our opponent has room for a Karax in the deck, but they are Yorion, so they could have one in there somewhere, which is a consideration with Vadmir. Another Orcish Bowmasters, you say? Would I like another Orcish Bowmasters? Or would I like... Right, I think I'm going to attack and see what happens here. We're going to take out the Xander's Lounge. What was our opponent up to over there? They just shut out by those Bowmasters. I think at some certain point you have to ponder into it, really. It's a bit like Standstill in some respects, where sometimes the best thing to do is just go right through it and, you know, find your answers. Lauren Veal being cycled. This is probably going to get them a Tundra. We are a bit shy of removal colours. There's the Tundra. Oh, they're playing a Wasteland instead of a Tundra. That is a fascinating one. Right, I'm okay to just Bowmasters here. I need white to cast a Supreme Verdict, so going a little bit wide isn't going to hurt. Let's go attacks. Glad we didn't get a Surveil Land earlier. I think we're just going to say no to their graveyard for a little bit. Feels like they might be trying to get some sort of Murktide action going. Alright, we're getting a force on our Dauthi. Play a Murktide, we do have the Edict for it. Tundra we knew about. You can see Murktide here. It won't be very big, but it'll be big enough to block our creatures and live. There it is. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand. Seen a Force of Negation, but I will do this on our turn because I want to force through some damage. That's fine. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Get out of here. This is also not a crime for the purposes of this guy, because we're not targeting anything. So the strength of this card that doesn't target is actually kind of... this is just a cantrip. Because like I said, this doesn't target, so the strength of it actually ends up coming back in a good way. Right, I think we attack here. They could get us with a sweeper. So I'm going to commit like the lower resource here. So just put this guy in so we have 3 1/1s if they take out our biggest guy, rather than committing the Reanimate to the Dauthi. But I think we're in a pretty favourable position here. Tropical Islands, that doesn't cast Supreme Verdict, so they're trying to play through this with like creatures or spot removal or something. They could play something like a Triumph of St. Catherine. That'd be pretty good. Or they could scoop it up. Alright, so we got the win there. That puts us to a 3-1 so far, so positive record locked in. Let's see if we can get the 4-1. Alright, opening hand for the final game. Interesting. I guess this is a hand where we really get to test out Vadmir and see if it's the real deal or not, I suppose. So I think I will keep this one, just to see how it plays out. So we could go turn 1, Surveil land, turn 2, Vadmir with, you know, we can grief them, and then we can Snuff Out in their turn. Or we're just going to get scammed on pretty hard here. Alright, so then I think they probably take our Vadmir here, to be honest. That kind of is the thing that our hand does. Unless they've got a very specific plan they're trying to execute that we can interfere with. Alright, I took the grief. What does that tell us about our opponent's deck? I don't know. Right, we're going to Surveil land. Gets Wastelanded, that sucks, but I don't think we want to cut yet, do we? No. Alright, our opponent's got a Brainstorm. So our opponent could be some sort of like Ad Nauseam Tendril style deck. Alright, so we are on Doomsday, so we're going to get bodied pretty hard this turn, I think. Well, not this turn, this game at least. So next turn they can Doomsday. That was a Ponder. Interesting. Our opponent not ready for Doomsday? That means they're trying to do a Doomsday pile that they can ponder into, maybe. So I think we have to Thoughtseize here. It's a shame we don't have Vadmir in play. Force of Will, Pitching Days. Alright, so our opponent has a Doomsday in hand. I think that's a given at this point. And what would the other card be? Dark Ritual? They have Dark Ritual, Doomsday, then they have a Ponder for after they've made their pile. Right, they're just pondering now. They didn't shuffle. Dark Ritual, Doomsday. With one card in hand, how are we supposed to beat this? Orcish Bowmasters doesn't do it here, right? They go to 8. If they put 2 Street Race in, that takes them down to 4. And then if they draw their cards... Yeah, okay. Maybe we can get them with a Bowmasters. Let's see their list. Looks like classic Turbo Doomsday to me. Can't see anything unusual there. They're a 2 Oracle build, which is pretty common for main deck configurations. I know about Doomsday quite a lot. Can't play the deck very well, but I know about it. Alright, so we have a thing we can do. So we're going to do the thing that we can do. And hope it works. Go Gadget Vadmir. Comes a grief. I don't think this is going to be enough. A crime has been committed. A Cavern of Souls. Oh, okay. So our opponents should just be able to cycle through and win. So they've got 3 mana sources. They could have like a Consider on top into cycle, win. And they know they don't have to fear anything from us. Actually, that's not true. We do have the Snuff Out, but they know about the Snuff Out. So they should be able to play around the Snuff Out. They have to get empty here. But Consider is usually a pretty good way to start that off. A Brainstorm. Oh, we're going to get a turn here. So an Orcish Bowmasters does win us the game if they pass. Because we get to ping them for 1, which puts them to 7. Then it commits a crime. And then we crash for 7. So there's still hope. But our opponent has 2 cards left in their library here. Alright, so there is a Lion's Eye Diamond. They should be able to do a 0 cards pile here. Oh, they don't have the ability to do a 0 cards pile on this turn. Reanimate. What does that do for us? Nothing. We can't target any of their guys. Oh no, I've messed this up. Oh no, I completely messed this up. We were supposed to play out our land and see if we could surveil into a Orcish Bowmasters. Yeah, I've just punted this one. Like, it might not matter. We're going to do it anyway because we might get something else. You know, we might still get a Bowmasters, which might be relevant. But yeah, that was a terrible mistake. Right. It didn't matter in the end, but it was still a mistake. And it's important to highlight them. We had a line there. So our opponent should be able to win now. Maybe our Snuff Out is... Well, the Snuff Out is the reason they didn't win last turn. Because they can't just do Oracle with 1 card in their library. They need to have the blue pips in play. If they put a Street Wraith in their pile, then they're in trouble. If they've got an Edge of Autumn, they're fine. Alright, we got fortunate there. So what is the deal now? So Surgical Extraction can mess with their pile a little bit. So that's something that we can lean into. Removal-wise, we're not going to need that much removal here. I think I like the Snuff Outs, but they don't kill Sheoldred is the issue. So maybe I don't like the Snuff Outs that much, and we just keep the Shoot the Sheriffs. And we've still got 2 more cards to find. Like, our cards are bad, is the problem. We could run a couple of Null Rods, and maybe shut off the Lion's Eye Diamond angle, but that doesn't feel great. We could run Faerie Macabres as a 3-mana 2/2 flyer, but again, that doesn't feel very good either. Harvester of Misery is probably not what we want either. I guess we're just going in like this. Alright, if we can find a second land, our hand is great, because we have Grief, Reanimate, Grief, and all the hand disruption you could ever ask for. And Bowmasters is, like, really good. We'll keep this one. We're on the draw as well, so we've got 2 draw steps to find it. I think we can't afford to get a Surveil land, though. Right, Polluted Delta. What are we going to see here? Oh, dear. We getting turn 1? We are getting turn 1 Doomsday. So they have the follow-up to actually kill us on turn 1. Or do I get a second turn? We didn't show them Wastelands in game 1, so we could draw one of those. If Grief could target us, that would be good, because we could target us. Well, even that's not going to be great, right? I was thinking we could target our own Bowmaster and put it in, but they'll have enough life to work with anyway, so that's going to be tough. Opponent's taking a little while on the pile, but that's understandable. Trying to make a turn 1 Doomsday pile is something that I've tried and failed at many times before. The deck is one that requires quite a bit of work to put, you have to learn all your lines and things. Alright, they've got there. So they brought in Leyline of Sanctities. There's no Sheoldreds there, which is good to know. Lotus Petal, Lotus Petal, Lotus Petal. Okay, so it looks like there's going to be an LED line. Maybe the LED is in their hand. Alright, I think we exile this, pitching Yawgmoth. Is this enough to slow our opponent down? Maybe the LED's in their hand. Brainstorm. Okay, Brainstorm is something that we could definitely work around. Alright, so we'll crack this. We'll get a Swamp. We will reanimate the Grief so we'll at least have a threat. So our opponent has a lot of lands. So they could have just put a Brainstorm on top of their library. They can also use this Scalding Tarn to fetch a land that they've put into their pile. Island. Yeah, there we go. As expected. And then this gives them like a Lion's Eye Diamond plus redraw of some description. And then, so yes, they can have a Consider, so they can mill the Scalding Tarn, and then just keep drawing the actual real cards they put in their pile. Yep, there's a Lion's Eye Diamond. There's a Street Wraith. In response, we're going to crack the LED for triple blue. And they're going to cast Consider. Yep. See, it's so much easier working out what the thing to do is when you're on the other side. But when you don't know what your opponent's got and they're going to get you with, it's pretty terrifying. Alright, so we didn't see the Sheoldred, so I will bring these Snuff Outs in over the Shoot the Sheriffs. And I guess we just submit again. Being on the plate will be a pretty big advantage. We get to have a look at their hand before a Verdant Summer happens. Now, they might be inclined to mull into a Leyline of Sanctity, which is also very good. What does this hand do? This hand is too slow. We need something else here. This is not it either. Okay. I can keep this one. We keep this. So, I think Grief, Reanimate Grief is still the best thing we can do here. Probably bidding a Thoughtseize and a Stalker. Now we just play this out. Grief, pitching Thoughtseize. Just the standard scam thing. Our opponent went to 6 as well, so we get to take a third of their hand this turn, which is pretty gross. Alright, so we take a Force of Will, and then we take the Ponder. Or they Force of Will the Grief. The Force of Will the Reanimate is the other option here. But that leaves them without a Ponder. They're going to be without a Ponder anyway, so I think this is correct to do. Yep. So this is our opponent with a Surveil land and a Thoughtseize to work with, pretty much, because I assume they have Surveil lands of the Polluted Delta that they can fetch. I didn't actually check. It's usually a pretty safe assumption. Alright, are they going to Thoughtseize us here? No dice. That does make me wonder if they have the Surveil land there. Alright, let's play out Polluted Delta, and we'll do our surveilling in our opponent's turn. Into the Delta. We will go to their end step and crack our little fetch land. I think where we played the mirror match that didn't have the Surveil lands, it definitely felt like the Surveil lands did a lot of lifting for us. These cards are just very strong. Sure, it's a threat. I will take a threat at this point. The more pressure we put onto our opponent's life total, the better it'll be for us because it makes the Doomsday piles harder. Here comes Vadmir. We don't have any way of committing crimes right now. But our opponent hasn't had much selection. This is probably going to be the Surveil land. Yeah, okay, so I did have the Surveil land. I just prioritised Thoughtseize using our 1-card hand over the Surveil land, which is an interesting choice. I think I would probably go for the Surveil land. Right, we've got another Surveil land coming as well. So now they have Doomsday mana. Oh no. Now they have Doomsday the card. Yikes. Okay, so this is going to put them to 8. If we can draw a Bowmasters, we put them to 7, 6, 5, 4, and then they can't cycle that. Then they can't cycle through their library. So once again, we want to draw a Bowmasters. Big surprise. The deck with Bowmasters in wants to draw Bowmasters. Good cards are good. Our opponent has finished their pile. I don't see any Edge of Autumn in here, but there are Street Wraiths, so they've got an Edge of Autumn pile. Alright, let's try and surveil our way to Bowmasters. Pretty big game. A Null Rod. What is in our opponent's pile? The Lion's Eye Diamond is not in the pile, so this goes into the graveyard. Snuff Out. That might be able to get our opponent. Unlikely, though. Because they already had loads of mana after they Doomsday, they were in a pretty solid spot here. Yeah, we missed on the Bowmaster there. Okay, so Ponder. They just kind of draw through some cards, they can get another land. Get some more cantrips. This should be pretty elementary from our opponent. It's a case of whether or not the Snuff Out ends up mattering. Alright, they've gone to 4. I do have a Lotus Petal. Alright, so now they have no cards in library. So our Snuff Out doesn't work here, sadly. But we get to commit a crime. And then we die to the trigger. Opponent was a lovely human being. And that is the end of the league. So we finished with a 3-2 record, which is pretty reasonable. That Doomsday matchup came down to whether or not we drew the Bowmaster. And we didn't. We got a bit of a freebie where they messed up their pile a little bit as well. So I think we can count ourselves relatively lucky there. Alright, let's talk about this deck. So, I obviously like Mono Black Scam, and the deck has changed since I first started playing it. And sort of first was a thing that people were starting to do anything with, because that was a Dark Ritual deck, and you were using Dark Ritual to power out some more potent turns. So you could do the Troll of Khazad-dum, Thoughtseize, and Reanimate it. And it also meant that you had turn 2 Sheoldred, which was very powerful. But now the format has kind of changed in a really weird way, where there's a lot of sort of mid-rangey, grindy sorts of plans where you're sort of jamming resources against each other. So like the Scam deck, for example, if they don't do their Entomb plan, they are kind of like a mid-rangey deck. And Delver can be a little bit mid-range if you trade a few resources off. You end up going quite long with some of the games. Well, that's the games they're not just completely stomping you or you're stomping them. So, you know, it is, again, a bit grindy, and there's a few lot more control decks now as well. So having this big burst of mana isn't actually what you wanted. A little while ago, I played a mono black list that had Dark Rituals in the sideboard for combo matchups. And that was really interesting and seemed to work quite effectively. Like if you need to get that Dauthi Voidwalker out early, then, you know, you have an option to do it. So I think the configuration of the main deck is more or less fine. I think the Duress could be Inquisition, because there's a lot of creatures in the format right now, but how many creatures do we care about, I guess, is the next question. Are we really bothered by opposing Bowmasters and stuff? Not really, so maybe the Duress does make sense there. It also helps with the combo matchup because it can kind of hit Beseech the Mirror and stuff like that. I think Vadmir was fine, but not particularly interesting. There are definitely boards where it can sort of scale and do some stuff. It kind of feels like Stalactite Stalker to me, where it's a card that is fine. I'm never impressed with it. I see why we play it. I would rather play something else if there was something else, but the question is there something else? And I'm not sure there is. It's nice having more 2-drops to go with your Voidwalker, but the problem with Vadmir is it kind of encourages you to maybe grief on turn 2, so that you can start committing crimes and growing it, but that's quite a different beast from griefing on turn 1. So we were often getting in a situation where all of our other cards we could play, so if we had a Bowmasters, or we had a Voidwalker, or, you know, we had some Reanimate shenanigans, they were all better to do than cast Vadmir. So Vadmir was one of the last things that we ended up playing, which makes it much worse because if this is one of the last things out of our hand, we don't have the tools to grow it. So it ends up being a little bit anemic and not really anemic vampire. Very good. Anyway, but it ends up being not like a big deal threat we particularly care about that much. So this could definitely be something else. Maybe if it's going to be one of the last cards out of your hand, we can have something higher up the curve. But I'm not sure if we can support 2 Sheoldreds in this deck reliably with 21 mana sources here. Yes, we do have the Trolls of Khazad-dum as well. But I think maybe 1 Sheoldred and 1 something else is possible. Sheoldred is just a very impressive card to me. You just win games with it all the time. And then we could maybe have the Dark Rituals and Sideboard as an option, if that's the thing we're interested in. As for the sideboard, I think Harvester of Misery looked pretty good here. It was a nice upgrade and was a bit of a combo, a mirror breaker even, and did some real work for us. Now, it does have a little bit of anti-synergy with some of the stuff we've got going on. I think maybe there's a deck out there that can play this in the main deck and really get to utilize it. So maybe if the only creature of yours that's killing is Grief, then that's good. But then if you're playing black, why aren't you playing Bowmasters becomes a question. Then yes, this kills your Bowmasters. And then, yeah, it just ends up being a sideboard card a lot of the time, I think. But, you know, that's fine. It's a powerful effect to have in a sideboard for those matchups. We didn't even play against the matchups where it's really good. So we didn't get to quite see it shine against like Goblins or Death and Taxes, Cradle Control or whatever. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing in the future. I've got a friend and they were playing this in their... I think they were playing Yorion Scam, like Esper Scam, and they had this in the sideboard and they're pretty excited about it as well. So I expect to see this popping up a bit more. The other thing I will say about this sideboard is the one-off Pithing Needle. I don't understand this one-off Pithing Needle. It's very rare to come up. We don't have any way of fetching it or doing anything with it. I don't mind having like one-offs if they kind of have some sort of overlap with other stuff. So, you know, if it's a removal spell and you've got some other removal spells, or it's, you know, a specific piece of graveyard hate going with some other piece of graveyard hate, that sort of thing makes sense. But just this one Pithing Needle, like, when are we putting it in and when is it good? If this was another piece of discard, then we could just up our discard count, maybe have a hymn or something. That would work. I think that would probably be a better use of this slot to make it relevant more often. That's my personal opinion when you're building sideboards for decks like this. If you're playing a blue deck, then sure, some one-offs make a little bit more sense because you've got your Brainstorms and you've got your Ponders and you've got a lot more way of finding them. But just a one-off Pithing Needle, what is that really doing for us here? I'd rather just have more of the things that work. And, you know, we can just augment our numbers instead of having this one-off that we need but also don't have much to do. Like, I suppose the one way of thinking about it is this is a 4th Null Rod that can sometimes do stuff in other matchups. If your Null Rods are mainly going to be naming like the One Ring, if your Pithing Needle is going to be naming the One Ring and stuff like that, that's kind of a thing you could think about. So I suppose it maybe overlaps a little bit, but again, I'm still not wholly convinced by that one. All right, I think we are done for today. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of Outlaw action with some Vadmir, shooting some Sheriffs and Harvester. Oh, I didn't really talk about Shoot the Sheriff, did I, that much? I'm not a big fan of these restrictive removal spells, but we kind of have to have restrictive removal spells because Wizards of the Coast won't print a good just 1 black destroy target creature like they should do. One day we'll get that. Hopefully Modern Horizons 3 is about time we had it. At least, if you're not going to have it in standard formats, at least have it in, you know, modern and stuff like that. Because these are all formats with like Path to Exile and Source to Plowshares. It's about time that black removal became really good again. All right, little rant over and we're done. All right, so remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. I do appreciate you all. I think I've broken the 2,900 subs. So we're approaching 3,000 subs, which is quite exciting. And I hope you're all enjoying my content. I'm enjoying making it, and I just love Legacy, and I hope you do too. All right, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.
If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.